Hi friends, I'm Abby and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing my January wrap up and looking through all of the books that I read over the past month. So the month of January was a bit of a weird reading month for me. I found that I was really slumpy for the first half of the month, that I felt like I was reading but I wasn't really getting through anything, and didn't really read. Maybe I read too much in December and I was just a bit burnt out, I do not know, but the first 2 weeks were very slow in terms of what I read. But then the last half of the month, I seem to have read loads of books. So it just all seemed to have all come at once with the amount of books that I read. In the month, I read 8 books, which comes to a total of 3,806 pages. So I'm really happy with that, considering how slow the first half of the month was. I'm surprised that I managed to get to 8, quite honestly. I thought I'd be finishing the month with 3 books, with the rate that I was reading at the beginning. All 8 of them were fantasy. Really stuck to my fantasy genre this month. 3 of them were YA, 3 were adult, and 2 of them were new adult. I had very solid ratings for the month, that everything I read I have very positive feelings about, so that's really good. There was nothing that I actively disliked. I read 1 5-star, 3 4.5 stars, 3 4 stars, and 1 3.5 star. I didn't really have any new favourites. I did a lot of rereading, so half of what I read was a reread, so there wasn't a lot of new books coming in so much, that it was a lot of rereading that I did, which is a weird thing. I don't normally reread that much. And then looking at my series, because my aim for this year is to get my series number down. So I started the month with 33 series on the go. So whether that's me waiting for the author to publish the next book, or I have no excuse and should just be able to finish the series. So it's 33 at the beginning of the month. Over the course of the month, I finished 3 series. I started 1 new one, and I have DNF'd 2 series, deciding that I will not be continuing on with them. So this puts my number at 28 series on the go. So I've moved down 5, which I'm very, very happy with. And the 2 that I've DNF'd are The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin. I've decided that I'm just not going to bother continuing on with that series. And the other one is the Great Coat series by Sebastian de Castell. Sorry, Alan, but it's the way I feel. All very positive on the series front, but I know that I'm going to be starting some new series in February, so I feel like I'm just in lieu for that. Starting off, I started off the year with rereading Reaper at the Gates before diving into A Sky Beyond the Storm, both by Saber Tahir. So this was to finish the Ember in the Ashes series. So my feelings on these. A Reaper at the Gates. I could not remember anything about this book. I really could not remember anything at all. And I don't know what it is. I was reading it and I was hardly remember anything. And I enjoy this book. I really do like it. I like the plot point. I like where it progresses with the series. But there's something about it that just does not stick in my memory. And I don't know what it is. And it probably is just me. And it's probably very weird. But it's literally as though I read it and it goes in one ear and out the other. And the same with my reread. A lot of the plot points are going very vague already, and I only read this at the beginning of the month. I don't know what it is, and it's not as though I read it particularly quickly. It's not as though I raced through it, because sometimes I find when I read things really quickly that they'll fade quite quickly. But I don't know what it was. But anyway, yeah, I enjoyed this whilst I was reading it. It was a good reread. Because I'd forgotten so much of it, it felt like it was a new book pretty much. I enjoy where the plot progresses. You get a lot more world expansion and the magic system gets expanded in this. It's a bit tricky to go into the plot so much because of it being the 3rd and 4th book in a series, but I do have a Should You Read the Ember in the Ashes series review up on my channel, so I will be linking that in the description so you can check that out, where I'll talk more about the series as a whole. But the 4th book, I really enjoyed this as a conclusion. I felt like it was a very solid conclusion to the series. It really wrapped up the series. I liked where all the characters ended up. I liked how they progressed. I really liked how it wrapped up. I think Saber Tahir, it was a tricky job to finish this series, I'd say. It's progressed quite a lot from where she started it, and time has moved on quite a bit. It definitely has. She's managed to wrap it up in a very clever and succinct way, which I really liked, and I really liked how everything ended up, and there were still a few things that were left open which I quite liked, so you could see that maybe she could do a bit more in the world in the future, maybe not with these characters but maybe like with other ones. So I quite enjoyed that. I really like the world is really cool, and I like how it expands from the first book to now, where you get to see different parts of the Empire's expansion. Though for me there were a few plot conveniences, particularly one right at the end of the book, which did take me out of the story a little bit. I was like, seriously? You're doing one of those plot conveniences? I mean, okay. But it was very, very convenient. I was like, that would be my main critique of the book, that it felt as though she needed to wrap it up, and she was like, I don't quite know how to give everyone the happy ending that I want to give them, so let's just throw this in there. And so it was very, very convenient. It was definitely an emotional read, and it was a good conclusion. I have also reread Poison Study by Maria Lee Snyder this month. I am reading this with my friend Vish from Books with V and our friend Sam, who's part of the Shelf Space Discord, and we've decided to be reading one book a month from this series. So I have read the first trilogy, but I haven't read any of them past that. So it's a 9-book series, but they're split up into 3 trilogies, and I've only read the first one. So we're working our way through this. And this was such a good reread. Like, I think we all had a lot of fun with it, and we were all surprised by how well it holds up. So this was published in 2005. So you think it could have been really tropey, but it really wasn't. Like, it did have tropes, but you know that this is like the original for those tropes. Like, it did a really good job. You're following a main character, Yelena, and at the beginning of the book she is in prison, and she is offered a job by the commander's like chief of staff to be the food taster or poison taster for the commander. So she's not been put to death, but her life is still at risk because she could die at any moment from a poison. So she's training to test for poisons. It's a world where magic is forbidden, so there are 2 lands. There's Ixion and there's another land to the south, which in the south magic is allowed and it's taught, whereas in Ixia it's very much a military state and magic is banned. The main character definitely has some form of magic, and I really liked the way this progressed. I'd say if you love Throne of Glass, then you would really enjoy this series. This was like the original Throne of Glass, I'd say. We are really looking forward to continuing our reread in February. I think we were like, is it February yet? When can we get to Magic Study together? I really want to reread it. So it was a lot of fun. I'd also say we were really surprised about the trans rep in this, that a lot of us had forgotten that is featured in here, and I haven't seen any Own Voices reviews on the representation, but it seemed we all felt like it was done quite well. And we're very surprised to find that in I'd sort of class this as a new adult book from 2005. It does have some darker themes in it, so I would put trigger warnings for rape on this. It's not explicit, but it is definitely a theme that is in this and the trauma that has on a person. Also throughout the month I reread Akawar via audiobook, which is A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J Maas. I have been rereading each of the books in this series via audio in preparation for A Court of Silver Flames, which comes out in February. So I loved that reread. It's so fun. I really like listening to the audiobook. I just went for walks and listened to the book and had a great time. It was a lot of fun, and I'm so excited for A Court of Silver Flames to come out. It's one of my most anticipated releases for the year. I'm so excited. Amazon is being a bit of a and isn't confirming when it's going to arrive. Like, it keeps saying it could arrive at the end of March, and I'm like, I've pre-ordered it. Why is my pre-order not going to come on the day of release? Why are you saying it could come months later? So if they can't get their stuff together, then I will have to find it somewhere else, but I'm getting that book. But I really liked the reread. I felt like it definitely helped me get prepared for this new book, because I'd forgotten quite a lot. And it was definitely really good for me to see the different character interactions. So A Court of Silver Flames is following some of the side characters from the original ACOTAR series. And so it was really good for me to sort of focus more on those side characters and see exactly what was going on there and their relationships and how they're going to build, and then see how they're going to develop in the new series. So it was great for me to have that get that really good starting point for that new series. Yeah, I was very happy to have reread that book, and that was my 5 stars of the month, because I give everything Sarah J Maas 5 stars pretty much. I'm very biased towards her books. I then went on a bit of a binge and I read the whole of the Divine Cities trilogy. So starting with City of Stairs, then City of Blades and City of Miracles, and I read the whole lot back to back, which is not something I have done for a very long time, and I thoroughly enjoyed myself with reading this series. It was so much fun. I can't remember the last time I binged a whole series back to back, and it was just a great experience, and it was just a great thing to do, to just start the first book and just keep going all the way through. And although like I probably could have had a break in between them, I just felt like I was like, well, I've started this now, I might as well just keep reading it. And I really like Robert Jackson Bennett's writing. I definitely found that the first book was the weakest, and it improved as the series went on. I'm not too sure which one's my favourite after the second and third one. I really liked them both, but this was definitely the weakest one in the trilogy for me. You're set in this world, and in the past the continent was ruled by these divinities, which are these gods which have powers. These gods or divinities were killed off, I think, I can't remember, it was like 60 years ago, by this person called the Kaj, and he is from this island called Sepur. And Sepur was sort of repressed by the divinities. It didn't have its own divinity, and so it developed through like electricity, and it modernized itself without the help of the gods. And so when they kill off the gods, the continent became very weak because it had relied upon the gods. So the cities were all built by the gods, and so they were the construction of them was weakened. So when the gods died or were killed off, the cities just sort of destructed on themselves, because half of it was built up by the power of the gods, and as soon as they died, their power disappeared. And so you're set sort of 60 years after this destruction, and this island of Sepur it sort of rules the continent now. And it's set in the city of Bulakov, which is, I'd say it's sort of Russian inspired, and it's called the City of Stairs because there's stairs that lead to nowhere. So when the city was built a lot by the gods, and so parts of the city just disappeared. And so the stairs they just go nowhere. You've got parts of it that are destructed. You've got the whole city's shape changed. You're following 3 main protagonists, Shara, Sigrid and Mulagesh. So at the beginning of the book, character dies, and Shara is there to investigate the death and see what's gone on and see whether actually it's not innocuous and it's the divinities that have caused it. So there's always in each of the books a theme of the divine within them. And I really liked the way there's like this interweaving of the fantasy world with the murder mystery plot. There's a few horror elements, and the way that was all interwoven throughout the story. I really enjoyed this book. I really liked the characters, and I really liked how the characters developed throughout the book. So this book, the main character is Shara, and then you've got different main protagonists in these 2 books, but I really liked the way they developed and the way they grew. There's big time differences between each of the books. I think there's like 5 years between City of Stairs and City of Blades, and then a further 13 years after that into City of Miracles. So you definitely get to see the characters grow. I really liked how they're all older protagonists. They're all like between 35 to 70 odd years old. So I really liked how they were adults. The only critiques I would have for this series is the first 100 or so pages of City of Blades is quite weak. You do sort of just get thrown into the world and you're like, oh, what's going on here? But after that, it was a great ride. I also found that it is a high fantasy, but it does have elements of like electricity and modern things like cars, which does seem a little bit weird. It's a bit of a weird juxtaposition between the really epic fantasy stuff with the modern touches. I don't know, that might just be a personal thing. Like I feel as though I prefer when there's either like an urban fantasy and you've got the modern elements, or it's high fantasy and there's no modern elements. I don't know, that's just a personal preference thing. But I really enjoyed it. I gave this one 4 stars, and then these 2 both 4.5. Like none of them gave me that 5-star feeling, but I really enjoyed my time reading them. I will have a full review of the series, which I will link, and if you want to hear more thoughts on it, then I will link that down below. And then I finished off the month with Vows So Bold and Deadly by Bridget Kemmerer. This is the 3rd and final book in the Cursebreakers series, so the first one being A Curse So Dark and Lonely. And I enjoyed this. It was fine. A Curse So Dark and Lonely was one of my biggest surprises. I can't remember what year I read it in, but it was a really big surprise. Like, it was much better than I thought it was going to be. I Didn't really have any hopes for it because I just thought it was going to be a very generic YA book, and it really surprised me. I really loved it. I really loved the characters. And then A Heart So Fierce and Broken I liked, but I didn't love as much. Like, it didn't have the same magic. And the same can be said for A Vow So Bold and Deadly. Like, I liked this and I liked the way it wrapped up. And it was fine. Like, it was a fine end to the trilogy, but it didn't wow me in any way. Like, I don't think I'm going to go away and like think about this book or like have any lasting impressions from it. Like, it was a good end to the trilogy. I really liked how there were 4 perspectives in this. So the first book you're following Harper and Ren, and then in the second book you're following Gray, who is a side character from that first book, and a character called Liamara. And I really liked how in this book you had all 4 of those perspectives, so you got to see how all of the characters were feeling, whereas I think the second book, the weakest point from it was that you didn't have Harper and Ren's perspectives. So I liked that you got all of them in here. It was missing something, I don't know. It was very easy and compelling to read. Like, I raced through this really quickly and easily. Like, it was fun. It was fun, but it's not going to like stick with me for a very long time, I don't think. Like, it's a fun way to end a YA series, but it didn't wow me in any way. I think it was a satisfying ending. I was satisfied with where it all ended up, but yeah, it's not an all-time new favourite. The first book is still my favourite in the series, but if you want the satisfying conclusion, then I'd say read it. Those are all of the books that I read in the month of January. It is currently the 30th of January as of when I'm filming this, so I have 2 days left in the month to read, and so I will be starting my reread of The Hero of Ages by Brandon Sanderson. I'm planning on reading this both physically and with the audiobook, so immersive reading, which I'm really looking forward to. I had hoped to get to this earlier on in the month, but just didn't get around to it. That's what my plans are for the rest of the month. I obviously will not be finishing this in 2 days because I cannot read 700 odd pages in 2 days. That's just not possible. But I will be carrying this over into February. Those are all of the books that I read in the month. Let me know what your favourite book of January was. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you in my future videos. Bye!